What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Accelerate Your Life podcast. I am your host, Mallory Marks, as always. And today we are diving into a Fast Fit Facts episode. Long overdue for you guys. I feel like I say that every time because I always go like a month or so. I do love these episodes, but it's just always so fun to have guests on. Sometimes just go off the riff on my own. And I'm like, oh, we need to do just like a punchy, get them the facts type of episode. So we're going to just dive right into it because if you are new here, Fast Fit Facts, this is kind of its own little sub series of the podcast where I try to take some specific fitness topic, nutrition topic, or just something in the health and wellness space that is oftentimes overcomplicated or there's a lot of like misinformation out there or just feels overwhelming. And I want to take it and I want to, in a very short amount of time in this podcast episode, just deliver you the fast, fit facts. Okay. No BS, no fluff, just straight into the point of what it is. And today's topic is all about it's about macros and just the idea of like, can you lose fat without tracking macros? I mean, that's the question we're going to be answering today. And I get this question a lot because oftentimes when people come to us that want to work with us, they're kind of in one of two camps. Either there's somebody who is already tracking macros. Honestly, a lot of the times they're too neurotic about it, and we kind of have to pull them back to a little bit more of a place of balance. Or they really have no idea around like what their macros should be. They don't know if they should track macros. Oftentimes they're sometimes like just they don't want to track macros. There's this like pushback to that idea because, and I get it. I think that the idea of tracking your food, tracking your calories, tracking your macros, especially with the way diet culture can sometimes frame it and make it seem, is it's a lot more framed in a way of like restriction, right? Like I can only have this amount. This is my limit. And it can seem like this kind of both toxic mentality and also just like time consuming. I mean, let's call it what it is, right? It takes time to track your food. It takes time to plug it into an app. And so there's usually this like, you know, pushback of like, I want to lose fat, but I don't want to track my macros. Like, is that possible? So that's the question I'm going to answer today. And let's go ahead and, I mean, just be transparent about it. The short answer, can you lose fat without tracking macros? Short answer is yes. Just like you can bake a cake without a recipe. Okay, it's technically possible, but the chance of it turning out the way you want, the taste, the texture, the look of it, if especially if you're not a baker, right? If you're somebody who's never baked before, you really have no idea of like what even ingredients should go into the cake, or maybe you have an idea of what ingredients should go into the cake, but you don't really know the quantities. Like if you are a baker and you're listening to this, like you know that shit matters, right? You know the amount of flour, like if you do too much, too little, the amount of baking soda, too much, too little, like it completely changes the game, right? So if you want to bake a cake without knowing the recipe and you're not really a baker, like, can it happen? Yeah, but it's probably not going to turn out the exact way you want. In fact, it might not turn out at all, right? So I think that's kind of the mindset you need to have with this idea of like, can you lose fat without tracking macros? So we're going to dive into that a little bit more. So I mean, let's just dive into that more. Like the first part being, yes, you can lose fat without tracking macros, but it is harder, okay? Because losing fat, losing weight requires being in a calorie deficit. I mean, that is just the science. There is no other way. Well, yeah, there is no other way to lose weight, okay? It is about being in a calorie deficit, but tracking isn't the only way to get there. You can definitely put yourself in a calorie deficit without tracking everything. And for some people, like especially people who they have been overeating. They've really had no consciousness about their food choices. They've been over consuming portion sizes for, a lot of their life, whatever. If you just cut portion sizes and reduce portion sizes of the same things you're already eating, like, yeah, you're probably going to lose weight and be in a calorie deficit. But the reality is, most people are not eating the same thing all day, every day, especially if there's somebody who wasn't really being conscious about their health. Like, they're probably not a meal prepper. They're probably not having the same things all the time. There's probably a lot of variance. So, just saying you'll cut portion sizes, like that makes it difficult because portions of what? Like those whats, the portions of whatever thing, like those things are different every day. So that could mean they have a different caloric value, right? So just like cutting down the portion size of, let's say, oatmeal versus, one morning you have oatmeal, one morning you have a bagel, one morning you have eggs, like cutting down the portion sizes, all those things have different caloric values. So it might not actually attribute to what you think, right? And so if you're eating different things every day, like that, might not be enough. But if you are, yeah, we can probably reduce portion sizes and be conscious of that and it probably put ourselves in a calorie deficit. But this requires a ton of self-awareness, the consistent habits, like I just mentioned, like you had to kind of already be doing things consistently. And it requires portion control too. And I think like one of the issues that I have with kind of doing things just more by feel and eye and cutting down portion sizes and whatnot rather than like actually having the data and logging and knowing is that you can cut out too much more than necessary. And you might be listening to this like, okay, like why is that a bad thing? I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to be in a calorie deficit. So like how can there be too much of a cut? Wouldn't that just mean I lose weight faster? I mean, yeah, but there's potential negative side effects to that. Okay. So why is that bad? Well, the quicker you cut things, probably the quicker you're going to hit a plateau too. Because if you've listened to other podcast episodes, if you've listened to any of my content, something you've heard me teach and talk about, and is a concept I hope that you've come to understand, is that the body is always adapting, right? And this is why, if you've ever dieted before, you eventually tend to hit a plateau because when you put yourself into a calorie deficit, that deficit is only a deficit for a certain amount of time. Again, the metabolism is always just trying to adapt. And so what it does is once it recognizes like, oh, I'm now only getting X amount of calories per day, I need to kind of adapt to make this my level of homeostasis. What do I need to do to make sure that now I'm only expending the amount of calories coming in per day? And so that's, I mean, partly why you lose weight because, and then once you lose weight, like you don't have as much uh I guess velocity and momentum, right? Which doesn't burn as many calories. So that kind of reduces your output. Your body will also do things like waste away maybe a little bit of muscle because muscle's expensive and that will pull down your metabolism. You'll begin to notice that maybe you get a little bit more tired and you're not just expending as much natural energy with things like fidgeting and, cleaning the house or whatever. And so eventually now you're not expending as many calories as you were prior. And so that deficit is no longer a deficit or not as much of a deficit. So if you cut too much too fast, you're just adapting your body down to this lower point quicker, right? Whereas if we would have cut, maybe 100 calories, okay, then we wait till we adapt. Okay, now another 100 calories. Okay, then we wait till we adapt. And then now another 100 calories. That could take, you could probably be on a weight loss of only that total and ending up total being a 300 calorie deficit for months, right? But if you just cut 300, 500, whatever calories straight out of the gate, you're going to plateau just as fast as you did to that like 100 calorie first cut. And now like you're just stuck at that lower point quicker. Hope that made sense. But yeah, essentially, I mean, if you cut more than necessary, you're going to hit that plateau too much too fast. Also, in addition to that, oftentimes I see burnout happen too much too fast. If you make these drastic portion size changes, cut out too much too fast, you don't really know. That also typically, like, I see people end up feeling even more restricted than had we just like tracked macros and had a smaller deficit. And so we get this mental burnout. We get this like diet fatigue. We get this like, ugh, I'm sick of this and I'm just going to treat myself this weekend. And that's where I see a lot of that, like, binge restrict, strict on the week, too loose on the weekends kind of come into play. So if you don't have that like self-awareness and true portion control to understand how much is too much and what a good like modest deficit would be, I see this being an issue. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. The second part of like why I just think it's so much harder to lose the weight without tracking macros is that typically what somebody's then doing is they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to eat intuitively and listen to my body. And they think that that's going to get them to weight loss, right? Or they just want to, I hear this all the time. Like, I want to lose weight, but I want to do it intuitively. Okay. That's a little bit of an oxymoron. Like, here's the problem with that, especially when you want to cut, when you want to lose weight. As I already mentioned, your body wants to be in homeostasis. Like wherever you are, it wants to be in homeostasis. When you are wanting to lose weight, you are essentially trying to go against its current homeostasis, right? You are trying to produce change. And so the only way to lose weight is to go into a calorie deficit. Well, a deficit or a surplus, on the other hand, I'm going to tie this back to like why I also think you should track macros if you want to build muscle, if you want to grow. But anything that's like outside of maintenance is pushing against that homeostasis. And so when you go into a deficit, your body doesn't want to be in a deficit. Even if losing weight is, I mean, if you were potentially like extremely overweight, then your body actually you're going to see a lot of like good probably benefits from going to a deficit and it probably won't like fight it too hard. But even if you have weight to lose, like it's still going against its like kind of homeostasis where it's been, right? So your body's never going to like tell you to eat less. You're going to get hunger signals, right? So if you're like, and that's just facts. I also think this is a great like little tidbit to go off, and it's not really part of this episode per se, but like being hungry in a cut is normal. Okay, I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be hungry. Like I'm hungry, so my calories must be too low. I'm hungry, so this shouldn't. Like it's okay to be a little bit hungry. You're going to be. Now, extreme hunger or fatigue or feeling like you're brain fog or whatever, like not correct. But like we're gonna experience the feeling of hunger in a cut. We should experience the feeling of hunger in our life. Like it's just say, even at maintenance, like that's telling you we have good hunger cues. Like it's time for a meal, right? Like it's a normal signal. It's okay to be hungry. And so when you're in a deficit, like of course your body's going to give you kind of these hunger signals because it's again going against homeostasis. And your body's like, oh, I just want to stay where I'm at. So in order to do that, like you need to be eating at maintenance. And so if you were to listen to your body, quote unquote, which is what intuitive eating means, right? And if you get these hunger signals, if you were to give in to them and eat every time you were hungry until you were satiated, you're probably never going to actually be in a calorie deficit because your body is never going to give you the signals to be in a calorie deficit. You know what I mean? So when people like eat intuitively or listen to their body, air quotes, it's hard to do when the body is already not in a healthy and optimal place. So if you're somebody who needs to lose weight, you can't, like, we have to also remember that we probably got to the place we're at by quote unquote listening to our body, right? Listening to our cravings, listening to like our hunger signals, which like if we haven't regulated our leptin and ghrelin, which is your hunger hormones, and we're not in a good place with those, unfortunately, we cannot just listen to our hunger cues. Okay. So, um, if you are somebody who is trying to change your physique at all, whether that be like just enhancing your physique, like if you're in a good spot and you're trying to build muscle or lose body fat, we cannot necessarily listen to our quote unquote listen to our body because again, we're trying to go against its homeostasis. And if you're somebody who is not in a healthy or optimal place to begin with, again, we cannot listen to your non-healthy and non-optimal cues if we want to get to a healthy spot. Um, and the last thing I'll say on this topic is intuitive eating, the idea intuitive eating, the idea of listening to your body. I believe it is something that has to be earned because going back to what I just said, especially if you are somebody who's not already in a healthy and optimal place, you do not have the skills. You don't have the skills. You don't have the understanding of what it means to like listen to your body, and your body doesn't have the ability to give you the correct skills because we've put it into a place where it's not optimal, right? So I think when I say like it has to be earned, I believe that that comes from something like tracking macros, understanding true portion sizes, which I'll get to all of this kind of more so in a second, but understanding true portion sizes, understanding your body's needs and what those needs look like for the healthy individual that you are trying to be, whether that's somebody who is maybe performance based, whether that's someone who is um, more endurance based, whether that's somebody who's just a healthy lifestyle person. Like you have to understand what the needs are for the goal and the individual and the body that you have in order to then be able to like make decisions within that, right? So that is just my opinion. I think that intuitive eating, it's an amazing thing. It's something we should all aim for, but it's not just something you can do off the riff. Like you don't understand what that means, and nor does your body to give those cues. Um, so that is my 2 cents. Now, like last part of kind of, can you lose fat without tracking macros? Yes, but it's harder. Here's the thing. When it comes to the like data, let's just be real. Like data, it, it's it's so helpful. I mean, without having data, let's actually look at it that way. Without having data, here's what I think happens. It's super over easy, or sorry, it's super easy to overeat healthy foods because if we're not tracking these things and we're not actually understanding like the caloric intake and where it falls and what you need, I think it's really easy to go into like, well, these are healthy foods, right? It's like avocados, nuts, protein bars. These are all amazing foods that have so much nutrient benefit, but they're also nutrient dense. And so I see a lot of people like when they want to be intuitive and listen to their body, tend to overeat these things, and then they're like, well, why am I not seeing progress? Like, why am I not losing fat? I'm only eating healthy whole foods. Well, we still have to consider, like, there's levels to this, right? There's nuances to this. We still have to consider the caloric value. Like, going back to the beginning of this podcast, if you want to lose weight, you must be in a calorie deficit, and you can definitely put yourself into a surplus by only eating whole foods. Okay. So we still have to have that kind of awareness. And if we don't have that data, it's really easy to do that. Also, on the flip side, I think without the data, it's extremely, this one is probably more so than what I just talked about, but it says it's extremely easy to overeat unhealthy, non-satiating foods because they do not, especially if you're falling into the camp where you want to like try to listen to your hunger cues more so and do this without tracking. Like they do not give the same signal to our hunger cues that whole foods do. I've used this example before on probably the podcast, I know on my social media, but take a family sized bag of potato chips for a second, okay? There's probably 1,000 calories in that entire, probably more than that, TBH, in that family sized bag of potato chips, right? And I think it takes like 5 whole potatoes to make up, or 8, 10 whole potatoes to make up that whole bag. If I gave you even just five cooked whole potatoes and I said to eat it, you would probably like quit on potato three. Like potatoes are big and just like bland, starchy potato, like I feel you would tap out. For sure, I would tap out and I can eat, let me tell you. But if I gave you a family-sized bag of potato chips, put you in front of the TV, let you just mindlessly eat that, you could probably smash that. I know I would smash that. And so what I'm trying to paint here is it's the same volume per se, it's the same calories, but the ability to just mindlessly eat it and like just smash it, right, is so different. And the hunger signals that they send is so different. You would get really full on the actual potato and not be able to finish. You would probably be like, I'm still hungry after the bag, right? And so the paint picture I'm trying to paint is like we can't just listen to our hunger signals and think we can stay in a calorie deficit when we are putting any type of like processed food into the picture because they just do not affect our hunger cues the same way. I also think, and it's kind of on that note, like without the data, it's really easy to underestimate or overestimate portion sizes. So again, overestimating probably things like processed foods, underestimating things like protein. Like I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm getting plenty of protein. I ate this piece of chicken or I ate whatever. And it's like, you think that's a lot, but it really might not be, and you don't know. Um, so I want to get into part two now. Like, why tracking? I kind of answered the question of like the fast fit facts. Like, can you lose weight without tracking macros or tracking calories? Yes, but it's way freaking harder. So let's talk about why tracking is a tool to use and like my pitch for if you want to lose weight, why you should do it. Okay. First things first, I want to clear something up. Like tracking is not a punishment. It is just data. Like I said at the intro to this podcast, I think the reason that I get this question a lot in general is because people have a skewed perception of what tracking means and they kind of think it is a punishment or it is a tool of restriction. And I think that this comes from a very like poor diet culture and poor relationship with food kind of mindset. And honestly, and I'll get into this more in a second, like I think tracking can help you unlearn so much of that. But like it's all about the lens of which you look at it through. So really recognizing that it's neutral, okay? It's just data. It is just a tool that you can use to like for food as fuel, right? And food in it itself is neutral. There's no good, there's no bad. Like we just need to understand our needs, what choices are that like fill those needs, what choices are that are maybe a little bit more nutritious, which choices are maybe not. But food's not moral, tracking's not moral, it's just neutral. But I think the problem is that people have a hard time looking at food this way. The reality is it just gives clarity about how much you're eating versus what your body needs, which when we talk about weight loss, when we talk about building muscle, when we talk about any type of health goal or body composition goal, that is what we're talking about. Intake versus needs. Okay. I also truly believe that it helps you learn several things. The first is portion sizes. Okay. I mean, that buzzword for this episode, right? Like we need to understand portion sizes. And if you ever want to get to a place where you can eat intuitively, you need to understand and be able to eyeball portion sizes and know, hey, my body needs about 100 and something grams of protein a day. Like I know what that visually looks like if I break that up into 5 different meals. And like then you can get to a place where you're not weighing it, you're not tracking it, but you just know. But the only way you're going to begin to know that is by tracking it and seeing, oh, this is what 30 grams of protein from chicken looks like. This is what, you know, 30 grams from Greek yogurt looks like. I need a cup. I need whatever. And so it really begins to help you understand portion sizes. I also think it really helps bring awareness to so much. Like, I cannot tell you how many women we work with who come in and they often think they're under eating and they're like, yeah, I really don't eat that much. I don't understand why I'm struggling to lose weight, yada, yada, yada. And then we get into tracking because with all of our clients, we have them actually track their food for 5 days before we give them protocols. And so much is even learned in those 5 days. They come back to us and they're like, I see the problem. Like, I thought I was barely eating because all I do is like eat some bites of my kids' scraps and I don't even eat breakfast and blah, blah, blah. And then we look at it and they're like, oh, but like when I add everything up, first of all, I like pretend that those bites from my kids' snacks aren't happening, but they really are. And when I like look at that, oh, that was like 500 calories. I've been basically pretending doesn't exist. And then, I make this smoothie in the morning that I thought was super healthy, but it's like 700 calories, which is totally fine. But it's just, again, I think people, think that their smoothie with banana and nut butter and flaxseed and protein powder and spinach and chia seeds and all this great, awesome stuff. That is great. And like keep eating that smoothie for sure. But like they don't recognize that it's, maybe a third of their entire needs for the day. And then they're still going and eating several other meals. So it just brings awareness and helps you begin to understand what is the value of certain types of foods. And now you know how to like fit those into your day or maybe where you need to make some swaps or whatnot. Awareness is so huge. I think it also teaches you how to build meals and be flexible. This one is so key because, especially again, if you want to be somebody who eventually gets to a point where you eat intuitively and also like has the freedom to go out to eat and not stress about it and not feel like having the date night or the last minute, you know, change of plans with your kids or whatever, like going out to eat is going to affect your goals. If you understand macros and your body's needs, I honestly think it gives you so much confidence to be able to actually go do those things more because now you know portion sizes, oh, well, like I've already had X, Y, and Z for the day. So I probably need about like 600 more calories. So looking at this menu, like what would be a good option? Like you feel super confident in being able to make those decisions. So I think when done correctly, it creates so much more flexibility because you know how to like change things and navigate like different situations to fit your needs. And it allows for so much more like, yeah, just freedom and confidence within that. And kind of on the last note, then I think it also helps you learn and create food freedom. Because first things first, I think like I see so many women, and I know this was with me too, where we have so much anxiety around food because of the unknown. Like when you're in the dark about something and you don't understand, am I eating, overeating, am I undereating? Like, I don't know if this banana is good, if this banana is bad, is this too much calories, is this too little calories? Like it's this always constant anxiety and like thinking about food. And it's just because you don't know. So like you can't calm the anxiety, right? But with tracking macros, like it's the data, it's data. It is right there. Oh, yes, I'm good to go. Or, oh, nope, let me just change this. And it's like, so you can be so objective about it. And like, there's no need to be anxious about it anymore because you're not in the dark? And you just feel so much more like, yeah, like, okay, cool, I'm on the right track. All good. Don't have to think about that again. So I think it very much can take away the anxiety and create a better relationship with food in that regard. And then it just going back to the flexibility, like I don't love the just if it fits your macros mindset because I think it's still really important to make sure most of the decisions you're making are like whole foods and nutritious foods and whatnot. But it does allow like, hey, it's your best friend's birthday tonight. You want to have a piece of cake? Cool. Let me just like plug that in, lock that in, and I can build the rest of my day around the fact that I know I want to fit this piece of cake in. And then you don't feel any guilt about the cake because you know it fits in, you know how to change your day the rest of the day. Like again, it just creates so much food freedom and allows for balance. So that is my like spiel on I think the things it helps you learn. And it's like training wheels. Like when it comes to tracking macros, it's just like training wheels. You don't need it forever, but they do get you moving faster. The other analogy I love and I use all the time on calls is I think it helps you find things faster without the mishaps. It's like trying to find something in your bedroom in the dark. Okay. You kind of know your bedroom. Like, could you get up and try to find it with your hands and feeling around? And this is like in conjunction to, trying to lose weight without tracking. Like, could you find it? Yeah. But, there's a good chance you're going to hit your toe on the bed in the dark. And we all know how freaking much that hurts. Or it's just going to take you forever or whatever. And it's like, dude, just turn the lights on. Like, if you just turn the lights on for a second, you're going to find it a lot faster. And yeah, it might take you walking over to the light switch and like waking up a little bit. And maybe it's a little bit extra work. But like, then you'll just find your thing a lot faster and you'll be good to go. Like, that's tracking macros. Okay. Oh, wait, I have another analogy. It's like tracking macros, or sorry, trying to lose weight without tracking macros is like trying to save money without ever looking at your bank account. Like, could you do it? Could you think like, okay, I think I'm like putting this part of my paycheck away every month, but like never looking to see if you actually are? Like, I mean, yeah, I guess you could do it, but you could then, do it for a month, think that you're going to log in and see all of this money saved, and it's just not. Same thing of like stepping on the scale, think you're going to like see all of this weight gone. It's just not. It's just not the smartest way to go. Okay. So I obviously am a huge advocate for tracking macros if you have any type of body composition goal. And then, okay, there is a reality where you can eventually get to a place where it might be okay to not track. I think that this is reserved for people who, A, have months, years of tracking experience and now understand and know how to eyeball portions and understand their body's needs. Or these are kind of all you're maybe more in a maintenance phase. Like you're not trying to lose weight, you're not trying to build muscle. Like you're at a good spot and you want to stay there. You're probably a great candidate for like not tracking and being intuitive, right? And listening to your body. But again, if you're trying to build muscle, which again, your body's not going to ask for the extra calories. I said I was going to talk about that earlier, but I didn't really get into it. But even if like building muscle requires being in a surplus, and most people might think like, oh, easy, like I'll just listen to my body and eat more. Well, at the same, your body's also going to tell you it's full. Like it's not going to ask you for more. So that's why it's also important to track there. Your body's not going to tell you that it's not hungry if you're trying to be in a cut. So those are times where I would track, but if you're maintaining, yeah, you're probably in a good place to just like listen to your body. Um, and then this one is a little bit like of a more like extenuating circumstance, but if you're in a season, maybe you do have fat loss goals, but time like stress is just so high, or we don't have other things like sleep down or workouts down. Like I'd probably rather us kind of fix those things before tracking and making sure we're good on sleep, we're getting workouts in, all of that, and then we can address the tracking side of things. But for most people who are chasing fat loss, tracking equals clarity, which equals results. Like that's just fact. So yes, you can lose fat without tracking macros, but if you have been spinning your wheels for months doing intuitive eating and wondering why nothing's changing, it's probably time to just stop guessing and start actually understanding and following the data and what your body needs. So if this hits home and you're ready for a strategy that doesn't leave you guessing, you can shoot me a DM or you can apply for coaching through the link that is down in the show notes, and we'll definitely chat about it and see how we can get you the result without restricting, without confusion, and just honestly a lot of education and getting you to a spot where you don't need to do this forever. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope this created a lot of clarity for y'all. If it did, please like the episode. Please leave a comment. Like it would mean the world. I do this for fun. I don't make anything from the podcast. I just love giving you guys information. But the comments and shares would go a long way. So if you could leave a 5-star review, a comment, and or share with family, friends, or on your social media and tag me, that would be amazing. Okay, love you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you on the flip side. Bye.